G'day everybody, Matt Ellis with you for the latest edition of the Cricket Library podcast, and today we have a very special treat. We are joined by a man who won an IPL title, a Sheffield Shield title, a domestic one-day title.
An edge, and caught, it's all over. So the Bulls, they win the Ryobi Cup for 2012-13.
He would also go on to become Baggy Green 413. Ryan Harris, the man also responsible for this delivery.
Ryan Harris. Oh, straight away! He's crashed into the stumps. England have lost their first wicket with the first ball of the innings.
And a 5-0 Ashes series victory. And it's a very warm welcome to the Cricket Library podcast to Ryan Harris. Thanks so much for joining us.
Nice to be with you, mate.
And we just heard that great audio there, and we'll get to that dismissal a bit later on. The ball of the century for a fast bowler's point of view. Sorry, Warnie, but we all have a journey. You've got a really interesting one. Where did it all begin? Where did the passion for cricket for Ryan Harris start?
Oh, far out. How long have we got? Oh, look, I look, it all started, I guess, for me when I've got an older brother who happens to be 9.5 years older than me. So for me, it was all about just tagging along with the big brother when I was a kid. I had obviously mum and dad who were very supportive of him, and at that stage, and obviously when he started playing, Saturday afternoon cricket, even school cricket, obviously I was always going along for the ride. So when he was, I guess, probably more getting into representative cricket back in Adelaide, in sort of the area we lived in, I'd always go along and always had to take my bat and ball with me, and always had to have someone throw me balls. It always annoyed people, not just mum and dad, but obviously people in the team, parents and my brother when he wasn't batting or fielding, to throw me the ball or I had to bowl to him. So that was where it sort of started. And then I guess from then on, I got my family, my dad's family probably more, if they're an English background, so they've always been involved in sports. So it was cricket, or it was football or soccer, and from then on, every Christmas and every time we got together, which is quite regularly, because we've got a lot of cousins around my age that are a year or two or 3 years younger or older. So we all got on quite close and quite well, and we're all very close. So it became quite competitive when we all got together, and especially at Christmas, we'd always have it sort of at each other's houses every year. But there was always a cricket pitch. It was either a driveway, a little strip of grass out the back. One of my uncles, my dad's older brother, actually had a bit of property. Him and his 2 boys, one's a year and a half younger and one's 2.5 years younger, actually made a cricket pitch.
Oh, how good!
First pitch, and it was fantastic. So that was sort of where it all began. And so playing competitive stuff with my cousins, and then obviously going through primary school, and then my first representative side, I guess, was an under-13 side at the Salisbury District Cricket Club. It was called the Ray Sutton Shield. It was sort of an entry point into district cricket as it was back then, and sort of made that side, I guess, when I was sort of 11 or 12, probably 11, I think, so I played 2 years of it. And then went from there. From then on, went into under 14 cricket, which it was back then for Salisbury, again, District Cricket Club, and then went up through the grades. And by the time I was about 16, 17, I was sort of playing 4th grade, D grade, which was sort of the entry level, I guess, at that stage for Premier Cricket, as it's called now in Adelaide. So I went up through there and managed to. Actually, funny story. My first couple of games in the 4th grade, I sort of batted down at 8 or 9, I think, if my memory serves me correctly, and didn't bowl sort of until 3rd or 4th change, until we got to a game at the University Club in Adelaide, the beautiful grounds in the centre of Adelaide, and one of the players, the captain, he was an old veteran of the club. He was a great guy, the general they used to call him, and he we were struggling for some wickets and weren't going that well. And one of the guys in the team, who ended up being one of my really good mates, who sort of only, just sort of started getting to know me and that. He said, why don't you give Rhino a bowl? And he said, I didn't know he bowled. I think I was going to put 5 for 20. And he said to me at the end of the day, he said, why didn't you bloody tell me you bowled? I said, well, I'm a 16-year-old. I'm not going to come and tell the captain what he should be doing. So it sort of went up from there. I had a few games in fourth grade, and then went up to third grade, and then went up the grades from there, and then managed to eventually break into the South Australian side. So, and then obviously from there on into Queensland and Australia. So it was a long journey. I had some interesting times in Adelaide. I wasn't necessarily the athlete that I should have been, which held me back. 8 years I was contracted to South Australia and didn't play nearly as many games as I should have. I was sort of in and out. I had a few injuries, but again, drinking some stuff off the field, alcohol off the field, and not looking after myself late nights, and that was sort of that held me back. But once I sort of realised I got to a crossroad where I nearly lost my South Australian contract, it was only for a player to knock one back that I actually got it back. So I went from losing it to getting it back within the space of about 3 weeks. So that was sort of the bright light for me to try and actually have a crack at being a professional cricketer. So it was nearly lost, I guess. In a way, I had a great coach at the time. I didn't realise it because we didn't necessarily get on. We butted heads because of just different things that happened. But Wayne Phillips, the wicketkeeper who used to play for Australia, Wayne Phillips is a great mate of mine now and has been for a long time. He was coach, and he sort of sat me down and said, what do you want to do with your life? So I'm a professional cricketer. He said, no, you're not. You're nowhere near a professional cricketer. You're a piss head. You've got some talent, but you're nowhere near getting, reaching your potential. And I sort of took a bit of offence, I guess, in a way that, I'd been a professional cricketer probably for 4 years, and he sort of said, look at your record, and he had my figures there. I can't remember off the top of the head what they were. But he said, this is not a professional cricketer. This is a bloke who, is good at coming in when someone gets injured or filling a spot. I said, well, I'm going to show you. And from then, I guess that was it. I got fit and reined myself in and stopped being an idiot and got fit and finally, and also with that, with being fit and a bit stronger and a little bit heavier with, the right, I guess, body shape, I started bowling quicker, and I guess the rest is history from there. So, long story, I'll probably give it on a bit there, but...
just on Wayne, on Wayne Phillips while we're there's a funny story there in your book. I think that conversation you were just talking about, is it true that Wayne Phillips, you said you needed a role or you needed something to do, and he offered you the job of watering the plants in the room? Yep,
that's it. Yeah, he sort of looked out the window and said, those plants out there, they need watering. That'll be what you do. And if you're not playing cricket, and he said you'll either won't be a gardener because you've got no qualifications. You'll be just a bloke who kills the weeds on the grass or does something that's basically was saying that was highly irrelevant.
Yeah.
So that was exactly what he said, and that, again, that was in that same conversation that he gave me right there and then. And as I said, I wanted to give it the old "I told you so," and I did, and I look back at that now, and as I said, we butted heads quite a lot. I'd go to training. I had a few injuries back then as well. I'd go to training and the plan to be on the board, and Wayne would leave me off deliberately because he just was playing with me.
Yeah.
It was all about a bit of maturity and working out for myself what I needed. So I didn't see it at the time. I thought he was a dickhead at the time, but I look back on it and I've spoken to him a lot about it, and it was exactly that. And I'm glad I can look back now and see the reason why he was doing that. And he was trying to get me to grow. He could see the talent. He always told me he could see it in me. He just didn't see it enough before I turned.
Yeah, and now you can really appreciate, I guess. That would have been a tough conversation for him to have, and it can go either way, I guess. And it's really good that we can be having this conversation now, and we'll talk about some of the things that happened after then. Just want to go back to coming into the South Australian team. You found out you're going to be playing your first domestic one-day game at your 21st birthday party. Can you give us the background to that?
Yeah, it was quite amazing. I must admit, I should have said from the front, I haven't got a great memory, so as you talk, I'm sure it'll trigger some memories. But
yeah,
what I remember of that occasion or that moment, it was obviously my 21st. It was coming in to the domestic season. We already played a couple of grade games, I believe. So 11th of October was my birthday, so it was sort of around the start of the season, obviously. And I knew. I trained pretty hard. And being around the group, I think I started the grade season off pretty well. Done pretty well in the practice games, and I'd heard sort of a whisper that I was close. And but again, being what was I then, 21, obviously, not knowing and being new in the squad, just not expecting anything. Halfway through the night, it was probably not halfway, it was before halfway, because halfway would have been I would have forgotten it being my 21st and having too many beers. But I remember looking over, and my mum and dad were standing with Darren Lehmann, who they knew very well, because Darren, as we'll get to again further in the conversation, but he grew up at the same club, and virtually I've played with him through my whole cricketing career, both on and off the field, as he coached as well. But so they knew him pretty well. But I saw them talking to him, and Mum was sort of smiling, and Dad was as well. And I said, what's going on there? Anyway, a bit of time went, and I sort of went over after I finally got over. So I said, what's going on? And they said, no, nothing. I was just talking a bit of cricket and having a laugh. And I said, okay, yeah, no worries. And then within 15 minutes of that, 20 minutes, I got a tap on the shoulder, and Buff Lehmann and Greg Blewett were there. And I said, what's going on? I thought they were going to play prank on me, obviously, being my 21st or something like that. And pulled me over to the side and said, just wanted to let you know that you're debuting next week in Queensland. You're playing against Queensland in your first domestic game. And I said, I think I had a tear in my eye.
Yeah,
I remember being quite emotional about it. And I thought they were taking the mickey out of me, to be honest, at first. But then, once they sort of got through and told me, I was quite emotional. So it made the night obviously even better. But again with Darren, and again we'll touch on more of it. But for him to deliver that news, I guess it's almost like he was presenting my cap there and there, I guess. But and also to know that I was going to Queensland and playing against Queensland, knowing that they were virtual. I think they were full strength, because we had Hayden, Law, Love, Simons. I think we're all playing, I believe. It was going to be a great test of where I was at that stage, very early stage of my career.
And early on in that game, you mentioned a couple of those names, Hayden and Law, 2 in 2 balls.
Yeah, I do remember that.
How are you feeling here? You're feeling, this one-day domestic cricket, like shelling peas. Hayden and Law, off you go. Yeah,
I have to tell you something, but I wasn't thinking that, because it was obviously I'd seen Matthew Hayden a lot. I'd watched him a lot as a kid in the nets, but when you're actually bowling at the other end, he's a giant. He was an absolute giant, and I was so adamant. Obviously, then did a bit of research on him and where he think he'd get him out and that sort of stuff. And I was actually worried about him hitting my back at me, just to make sure I was ready, because I knew how hard he hit it. But I bowled a couple to him, and back then I wasn't very quick, but I was. I could swing the ball both ways, and I could hit a decent spot. So I can't remember how many balls I bowled to him, but I did that. I sort of went 2 in, 1 away, and he just nicked it. And I thought, he's just nicked that. And I ran through. I was obviously, very happy with it. And I think I heard what he said. He was walking off. He was really angry, and he said something about, as he walked past, I think, the rest of the team, he said, I thought he bowled bloody in-swingers because it went the other way. And 2 of the boys had a bit of a chuckle about that. But, and then obviously Stewie Law, come in, and it was a big out-swinger, and he, obviously being the new bloke and first game, I think he obviously tried to put pressure on me straight away and tried to literally slog it over the fence 15 rows back, and it was a sort of wide half volley, and he nicked it. So, obviously a good start. It was... I thought that, I didn't think the game was easy, but it was obviously a dream start for a bloke who's just sort of hopeful, on the sort of the starting his journey.
But Matty Hayden got his revenge. I think Matt Hayden, something like 10 one-day domestic wickets, 17 first-class wickets, and you're on that list. How did that happen?
That.
Was he winding you up?
Yeah, I must admit, back playing Queensland back then, it wasn't just him. They all did. They were really good at not sort of sledging you personally, but sledging through you or talking through you. You know, from second slip to point to through the square leg. They'd always knew how to say it in your ear, sort of in the earshot of where you were. But I have to admit, I think I don't know how many I got. Was it 15 or 20? But he came on a bowl, and I sort of said to, I think it might have been Ben Johnson. I said, who's that? I didn't know, who's that bowling? Obviously, I knew it was, but I didn't know he bowled. Didn't know how to bowl. So he came in, and I think he bowled a short one, and I tried to pull. I was never great with the pull shot, and I think it went straight up. So, but as I said, I actually had tried to wipe the memory of that, and things to remind me.
Now, you move into first class cricket as well. We've spoken about the influence of the likes of Darren Lehmann and Greg Blewett. I think it was in that first class debut, those boys piled on plenty of runs from memory against Tasmania there. What was it like for you coming in and just trying to make your way into the first class team?
That for me, that was a fascinating game of cricket, mainly because, again, the high of coming in. I never really thought I was going to be much of a red ball player, so I didn't think I bowled quick enough, and my batting was okay, but it was never going to be good enough to bat the top six and all that sort of stuff. So to be able to get that opportunity, I could bowl some fast balls, but it was inconsistent because I wasn't fit enough, all that sort of stuff. So I wasn't sure if I would ever get an opportunity. So when I did, I was pumped, and again, it was just one of those exciting times that I've got the red hat in my hand, something I never thought I'd have, and it was going to be unbelievable. I think my first wicket there was Michael Dighton, I believe, and then Shane Watson not long after, and that was amazing. But it was short lived because I only bowled 9 overs because I tore my second half.
That's right.
And came on, and it was one of the most painful injuries I've ever had. To be honest, I've still got a bit of an indent on my arm where it actually happened. It was horrible. I just bowled a ball, and I felt a little tickle. I thought it was a tickle, and a bit of an ache, and then I thought I'll keep going. Then next ball actually ripped. So that was the end. That was the end of me. I think I bowled 9.3 overs or something like that. But then from then on, the wicket was a bit up and down, and David Saker was playing that game, and he could bowl decent pace, and Jeff Vaughan was batting. He was a very good player, Jeff Vaughan.
Oh, that was that brute of a delivery. The
brute of a ball that pitched virtually on his toe and hit him literally in the badge of his helmet. And that, from then on, after that, Jeff really struggled because he was getting a really bad concussion. He had really bad headaches. He never really came back from that. He played a couple of seasons after that, but never really got back to his best, unfortunately, which was really sad. But you talk about Bluey and Buff, the wicket was up and down. They proceeded. Bluey got 220 and Buff got 180.
Wow.
From then on. It was phenomenal. But David Saker was bowling and virtually taking 2 steps after in his follow through and ducking because Buff was backing away and slapped back at him, and then they tried to bowl short at him. Buff put it over the keeper. Then they put a man there. They put a man virtually behind the keeper, and then at third man, and he'd go square it, so he'd move, and then he'd go back. It was a phenomenal game of cricket after what had happened. A couple of injuries, and then the way they did it. And then in the end, I remember being next in, but we were miles ahead, and thankfully I didn't have to bat. And then obviously the boys did really well to be able to bowl. We had a big lead and they bowled them out. But it was just a phenomenal game of cricket. And again, not a good one to remember for me because obviously, falling over, being injured, but just the way it all unfolded with 2 men down, 2 blokes just going out, making a mockery of what was supposedly a very dangerous wicket, and then winning a game with 9 sick guys.
Yeah, incredible. And you talk about that later conversation you have with Wayne Phillips and that being the turning point. You do eventually get the opportunity to put on the Australian colours. You get the call up, I think it was South Africa down in Tasmania for your opening game, and then there's a bit of a lag before you get another run in the side. But when you do get that second run in the side, you have a lot of success there. Can we start with your debut? Cap presentation being number 169, I think you are there for Australia. What and the significance of the jersey number?
Yeah, I mean, it means a lot because firstly the numbers. The jersey. Sorry, the jersey number was my number was always 11. I tried to always get 11. That was my birthday. That was something I had. But my next one, I didn't really have a backup, to be honest. And that number at the time, 11 was someone already had that number. So the next one was basically 45, which was the year of my mother's birth, and obviously she had died two and a half years before that moment. So from then on, when I moved to Queensland as well, it was number 45, and thankfully it was available when I played for Australia. So that was the reason behind that. The ODI debut, again, it was a people ask me a lot about that. Geez, you must have been nervous the night before, and you must be, building up. I was 29. I was 29 and I played a fair bit of cricket by then. I was reasonably experienced and was really happy with my game was. But I was only there as a backup because there was a bit of a Sean Tate had a bit of a niggle. He was sort of straight, and then I was just down there. I think I played a club final a couple of days before. Back 2 days before. So I was flying down and then, prepared. I think I had one session prepared as if I was playing, but I never thought I was. And then literally 15 minutes before toss, or 20 minutes before toss, Ricky came over and he said, "Mate, you're in because Tatey's hurt. He's not playing." And I thought, it might have been 30 minutes. So I thought, oh, geez, shit. I've gone from, so I didn't really have that, the sleepless night, or I wasn't really too nervous because obviously I thought, what if? But again, it was, for me, I felt I was at the perfect time. My game was where I wanted it. I knew I could do it. I knew I could, perform if I had to. So I got in, got the late call up and unfortunately for Tatey, it didn't work, and then gave me the opportunity. But as you say, there was a big break between then because obviously, Tatey came back in and he played well. There was Brett Lee there at the time as well, so they had a really good side. But I think I got a shoulder injury around that time as well, which kept me out. It was supposed to be only, I think, 2 months, but it ended up being about 6 months or 5-6 months. So that was the reason for the big break in between.
Yeah, and then when you do come back, it's back-to-back fifers.
Yeah, that was lucky as well. Pakistan, Pakistan. But no, look, it was good. I had a good side back then. But I felt again I came back. I played well for Queensland and worked really hard to get back. After having a slight taste of it, I wanted to get back there and came out and bowled well. And my one day form obviously was pretty good with that. And they. Thankfully, the selectors, saw it was good enough to sort of put me in. Well, I sort of went straight to New Zealand after that series and was bowling well over there. And I think the one day tour followed a test tour or vice versa. So, I think the one day tour was first. It was definitely first, and obviously bowling well enough to be picked in the test squad. So that was obviously a massive highlight.
Yeah, getting that test debut, because I think we spoke with Peter George on the podcast a few months back, and for people who want to catch that one, you can download it in all the usual places. And Peter George was actually called in and on standby around that time as well. And you get the call up for the Basin Reserve. You had family over there, I understand, as well. Can you give us a bit of a rundown of what it's like preparing for your first ever test match?
Yeah, it was quite. I think Georgie might have been over there for me. I think because I did have a bit of a hamstring or sort of groin niggle after the one day. So I remember that because I remember I wasn't allowed to celebrate with the series win after the one day. So I had to just go out and have a nice cold water and get to bed early. So I was get back to treatment. So I remember him flying in. But once again, as I said before, with Shield cricket, I never thought I was ever going to be red ball player. I thought if I was ever going to make it, it was going to be, as a white ball player, because I was okay with the ball, I was okay with the bat, and I loved the field, being in the field. So to be picked on a test tour, and then to be told, once I proved, I think it was the day before, which is unusual. Usually it's 2 days out, but I was told the day before, once I got through the fitness test, that I was going to play. I have to admit, I said before, I probably contradicted a little bit. I was a little bit nervous the night before. I slept well and that sort of stuff, but to know that I was going to get that Baggy Green was it was a good feeling. It was a very surreal feeling. By this time I was 30. So to know I was waking up and as a kid, and everyone sees it, as an aspiring cricketer, you see that presentation happen to so many cricketers, well, to not so many cricketers, only a certain number, but to cricketers that have, worked so hard to get to that moment in time. And you see it on TV so many times, the cap presentation, the Baggy Green presentation, to know that was going to happen was an amazing thing. And as you said, I had my family there. My dad was there, my wife and my brother. We had dinner the night before. Everyone was sort of excited. It was great. And obviously I had to keep it under wraps as well, because we weren't giving the team out until the morning. So,
yeah.
But then to wake up and know that I was getting that cup, and then it was very exciting. Got to the ground, and I was very nervous, because I wanted that moment. I wanted to get it in my head, and it was fantastic. The funny thing about it was that the management of the team, that was sort of around the period where they were getting family in to witness the presentation. But Dad and my brother and my wife got to the ground early enough, but the security wouldn't let them in.
Oh, no.
So I think they went to the wrong gate where the management were going to let them in, but security wouldn't let them in, so they go around. By the time I think they walked in literally as I was putting on my head. So that was a bit disappointing, but they saw the replay of it and all that sort of stuff. But I think Dad walking in and my brother shed a bit of a tear once I had the Baggy Red. I went over to the fence and gave them a bit of a hug, and they were pretty chuffed. But it was a pretty good feeling. So and Dad and my wife were there for the whole time. My brother went home halfway through, but which he regretted, of course, because Dad at the end of it ended up having dinner with the whole team, which my brother, being a huge cricket lover, might have said a few expletives once he found that out, that he missed out with dinner with the Australian team.
Yeah, I just realised as well, today on the social media channels, Damien Fleming's been bringing up the 99 World Cup, and I understand that at the 1999 World Cup, you lurked your way into some celebrations with the Australian team thanks to your mate Buff Lehmann.
I did. How did you find that out? That's fascinating. That's out there. How did you find that out? That's a good question.
That's actually in your book, believe it or not.
Is it? Oh, right. Oh, probably you were right. I forget about my book. It was that long ago. But,
yeah. So, it just popped to mind today because of that footage doing the round of that scene there, and you were over there playing cricket at the time, I think. I
was.
And there you are, you're a young bloke and you're partying with the Australian cricket team. Was it similar for your dad? Was he like a kid in a candy store talking to Punter and whoever else?
Yeah, absolutely. He was beside himself, to be honest. He didn't know. He was so appreciative, because being the new bloke in the team, I didn't know what happened. Dad was there and he sort of said, "What are you doing? We're going out for team dinner." He said, "I'll catch you later." And then Brad hadn't overheard me saying that. I know, I think he came to me and said, "What's your dad?" Because I walked off from saying that and had said to me, "What's your dad doing?" He said, "Oh, he's just going to go do his own thing. I'll catch him after." He said, "No. What do you mean? He's coming to dinner with us." I said, "No, he can't do that. It's a team thing." And he went straight up to Ricky, and Ricky went over to Dad and said, "What are you doing for dinner?" He said, "I was just going to go do my own thing." He said, No, you come with us." And he was pretty tough. He was very chuffed by that. But just on that World Cup, I tell you, I was in not much contact with Darren when I was over there, because obviously they were playing, but we had tickets. My brother was there at the time, my sister-in-law, and we had tickets to the other semi-final, which was New Zealand and Pakistan, obviously. Yep. I think it was New Zealand. So we had to swap tickets and all that sort of stuff, and we managed to do that. And then obviously we were there for the tied game. And then I think what jogged Buff's memory of me being there was when we won, I went flying out onto the field and ran across him and gave him a big high five, and he came back and gave me another high five, and he said, he came back and he said, I'll call you, and then ran off. And that was when he rang me and said, look, I managed to jag a ticket for the final if you want it. So I said, I was actually playing, but I think we must have finished. We had an early game, I think, for that reason, because the World Cup final was on, and I managed to get there. I think it was about 10 overs in. But again, it was, as you said, it was exactly the same as what Dad was feeling, just to get in there. And I think I was only there for a couple of hours, but to be able to, to mingle with those guys, especially at that age, at 19, was a phenomenal thing. And again, very appreciative of Darren to be able to get me in that position.
Oh, I'm just wondering, at that time, was there a seed planted in your mind that one day you could be there for real, so to speak?
Oh, definitely. To imagine being able to have that feeling of winning, yeah, definitely a dream of wanting to be able to be in that position, and getting one of my mates in to celebrate with us, and being one of those team members to win it, definitely, absolutely, definitely. And I nearly had that. I think the 2011 World Cup, I was sort of around the mix, but I think I had an injury at the time. Again, there was a pretty good one-day attack there too, so I may not have made it, but I was sort of pushing the boundary of it. But the dream almost came true. But again, I guess you always had the dream, and you're right. I definitely had that feeling of going away from that, thinking, imagine that one day being in that position wouldn't be too bad.
Yeah, and you do get to experience victory in the IPL. You're playing with Deccan in 2009. Gilly's over there. He smashed them throughout the whole tournament. Didn't do quite so well in the final, but can you tell us about the IPL?
Yeah, that was something that came in 2008, and it was just the big thing. It was all of a sudden players were getting 800, 900,000, $1 million US or even more to play cricket, and this was just, no one could really fathom it. It was just phenomenal, and I just moved to Queensland in 2008, so that was the first year, and I'd done actually quite well in that first season with Queensland, and it became the T20 stuff, and knowing in the back of your mind, I think it's how good it would be just to get it. I was never going to get $1 million, but just to get a bit of extra cash and go and experience India and all that sort of stuff. And I think it was about 4 games to go of the season, or 5 games to go. It might have been halfway through the season. It was Queensland. I actually broke my foot.
That's right.
And so that was might have been February, I think. So it was there was about 4 games to go, and the auction was coming up, and I was going quite well, and there was interest in from about 4 franchises, and I thought, far out, this was going to be. Oh, sorry, that was actually. I'm skipping ahead there. That was for the next time. That was for Kings 11. Sorry, yeah. Darren was coaching. Darren was taking over from Deccan from 2008, because they finished bottom.
Yep.
And Darren was taking over. Sorry, I've skipped ahead there. But and he sort of rang and said, what do you think about the IPL? We've got a spot. It's not a lot of money. It was $100 US. That's a lot of money. Would you be keen? I said, yes, Darren, I would be. I would like to come and play in the IPL. And that was the year it was in South Africa. So I heard so much hype about. India and how good it was, and the crowds and the hype, but this was going to be in South Africa. So it was it was still huge. It wasn't quite that Indian feeling, but it was still huge. But to be in that team with Simons, Gilchrist, Scott Styris from New Zealand, Herschel Gibbs, Rohit Sharma was playing then, Pragan Oja, R.P. Singh, who played for India.
Yep.
Among others, was amazing. And to win it was that, well, as I said, we finished bottom at the time. We finished bottom the year before. So to come into a team and, to win was amazing. And as I said, the hype around the whole thing was just ridiculous. The money, there was no expense spared going to functions, it was just amazing. And then from then on, going back and playing in India, I got the Indian feeling. I played the next 4 years, I think, or whatever it was, 5 years, and got to experience the Indian feeling, and it was just amazing. After every game, you finish a game, a late game and you finish at 11:30 at night, you'd be out of there by about 12:30, and on the way home in the bus you're planning, you get, what are we going to do tonight? We have a drink, let's go to someone's room, or no, there's a big party on. So you go quickly get changed, you go to the Basin or the hotel, and you walk in and this music was deafening, and there'd be a fashion show, there'd be cheerleaders everywhere, there'd be models everywhere, male and female, and big party. You'd go for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then just cut off, and everyone was just getting into it, and then that was it. You got to go home.
Wow!
It was just amazing. So a really good experience, and lucky to be able to experience all that.
And good for international relations amongst the players as well. Good for
definitely. Yeah, I mean, absolutely, and. From afar, you sort of see guys and think, geez, he's a bit of a dickhead, You don't really know him. But when you get around and spend time, Herschel Gibbs, to me, I never thought he was a dickhead, but he was always a confident sort of bloke, and, but you get to know him, and he was just a fantastic guy. And same as Scotty Cyrus. A lot of guys over the years that I played with were fantastic blokes, and it did a lot for international relations. I think even Australia, India, a lot of the guys, Andrew Simons with the debacle that went on with Australia, India. He ended up going to play with Harbhajan Singh, and I think they actually sat down and had a good chat about it and talked through it. So it was really, really good for definitely for relations between the countries.
Now, back domestically, a lot of our listeners are massive Australian domestic cricket fans, and I just wanted to touch on a couple of big games for you domestically. We'll start with the Shield final, 2011-12. You personally don't have the best start with the ball in the first innings of that game, and then it's struggle street for Queensland. I think 5 for 50 odd, chasing 240, and then Chris Hartley and Steve McGoffin saved the day. How much did it mean to you to win a Sheffield Shield for Queensland?
So, and no disrespect to my test debut, but I was probably more nervous in that game than I was playing my first test, to be honest.
Wow.
For me, growing up in South Australia and watching, was it 90? What was the last one?
96, yeah.
Kid. Yeah. All I wanted to do for me was to win a Shield, or a one-day comp, but preferably a Shield. And all those years we had in South Australia, we had such a good sides, and just we were able to take those to the last couple of steps, and were in positions to make it. We couldn't. So it was really disappointing. And then the opportunity came to go to Queensland, and my reason for moving to Queensland was there was a bit more security. It was an extra year on a contract offer. That was probably it.
Yep.
Family reasons. My brother was here, which I hadn't lived with for a long time because, as I said, he's a bit older. He'd moved away from Sydney quite young, so he was living here.
Yep.
An opportunity to be with him and his kids. But to know that someone like a side like Queensland or a place like Queensland wanted me to come and play. Queensland was so hard to play against, as I said. South Australia, I don't think, won many games of cricket up in Brisbane for a long, long time. They were such a passionate side. They were such they just knew how to win. They had a great culture instilled in them.
Yeah. And
for me to have that opportunity to come up, at the time, as I said, it was something that I never ever thought I would do, leave South Australia, but to have that opportunity to come up and play alongside Andy Bickle, who was sort of at the end of his career, and be involved with guys like Andrew Simons and all that sort of guys, it was a phenomenal thing. And again, at the time when I made a decision, Test cricket, playing for Australia, that was obviously the top of the tree, but it was something I never really was focused on. I moved to win trophies, and to be able to get to that stage. I think the first year actually I was there when I broke my foot. We played in the Shield final against Victoria, so I missed that one. I think I missed 2 Shield finals. One was injured, one I was away.
Yeah.
But this one was just amazing, and I had tears in my eyes at the end of it because it was just something. Like I said, it was like getting the Baggy Green. It was just a dream come true to be able to hold that beautiful trophy, the Shield, to hold it and say that I'd won it, and won it with again with Buff coaching. Another sort of tale in my cricketing career and life with him, and And to win it with such a great bunch of guys was amazing. And obviously, as you said, the way we won it with Steve McGoffin batting like he did, and then Chris Hartley was just phenomenal. So, yeah, as I said, that was quite an emotional time for me. That was a huge dream come true to be able to hold the Shield and still have 1-1. I wish I had won more, but I still have 1-1.
Yeah, and then the following season, the Ryobi Cup final against Victoria. Interesting game, reduced to 32 overs. I think Clint Mackay bombed a couple of sixes to put Victoria pretty much in the box seat, and you've got the task of bowling the death over. Can we get a bit of a insight into that last over? I know you mentioned your memory isn't the greatest, but
I remember. I was watching that not long ago. Actually, it popped up on my it popped up on my social media, which it does quite, which is really good. So for people that do that, please do it because it does jog my memory. When that happens, but. Oh, look, it was a game where, obviously, you said rain short and we were in big trouble. And Jason Flores, I know you want me to talk about it over, but set the scene. Jason Flores, he was a guy who played a lot of cricket in Queensland in the outfit on the side, but was a really, he managed to get us to and got us to a competitive total. I think it was at 140, 143. And as you said, we're playing against a reasonable Victorian side, and Finch, Quiney, as you said, Cameron White, a lot of them, it was a reasonable side. And so obviously, we're in a bit of trouble, and we took a couple of wickets early, and then they good partnership, I think, and then came to the end, and I remember James Papes just saying, mate, let's just have a crack at this. And I felt, usually it took me a couple of balls to warm up, but I just felt, just the adrenaline. So I've got to try and, have a crack from ball. I can't, no looseness, otherwise it's, a ball that goes to the fence is going to cost us. And I managed to let a couple rip, and it just felt good. It was amazing how it just felt good. And I managed to bowl, I think it was the one to Clint Mackay that flicked the glove, that Chris Hartley somehow climbed the ladder and took a screamer, and then I think Farward.
Was it Farward? Yeah.
Yeah, he was the last one. But again, we were really down, and we took a couple of weeks again, as I said, and I have to admit there was nothing better than beating the Dicks. And I brought that rivalry a bit from South Australia, because the South Australian Victoria rivalry, obviously, through the footy as well, was awesome to watch as well. But it was always great to beat them. And I think they played a few one-day finals and lost it around that period of time. So it was a huge thing. And then, obviously Farward came out, and I knew he was dangerous because he was a bit unorthodox Farward, but he could hit him off the square and hit a big ball, and managed to get another one in the right spot, and Pete Forrest took the catch, and it was amazing. We couldn't believe we won it. It was one of those things that not just myself. I put a couple in the right spot at the end, but the boys drew in the middle and bowled really well and fielded really well, and I guess the rest is history. We were lucky to walk away with that, very lucky win. So it was another thing another trophy that it was great to be a part of, and I think we won the next year as well. So we had a good little era there, a little period through the Queensland cricket. Yeah,
absolutely. And on the following season, 2013, it's an Ashes year. Man of the series in an Ashes campaign, a losing Ashes campaign. How do you deal with the challenge, I guess, in cricket of individual performance and team performance? You do really well individually, but Australia lose 3-0. How do you process all of that as a professional athlete?
It's a good question, but for me, it's an easy one. If you don't win, it's you obviously got to. One of the things that I was always taught, you've got to celebrate success, individual success, whether it be win or lose, and whether I bowl and take none for 100 one day and come out and get a duck or whatever it is. If someone bowls and gets 5 for 50 or 5 for 100 or makes the 100, you've still got to get up. You can't be sort of kicking cans around yourself and not celebrating with your team. So that for me was an interesting series, to be honest. 2013. I was up for it. It was great. One, to be playing an Ashes series in England was just amazing. And we went into that. Well, that was obviously, it was a bit of a messy start to that tour because that's when Darren took over and Mickey Alistair sort of got the sack. So that was, and I'd come back from I think obviously an injury again. We had a great Australia A squad, Australia A tour that was shadowing the Champions Trophy.
Yep.
But we played, I think we had like a 6-week leading. We played a lot of, or 5-week leading. We played a lot of cricket. I'd only played a couple of games because I was coming back from injury, so I played the back end of the A tour. But I was in great shape, and I missed the famous first test at Nottinghamshire when Ashton Agar got 99. I missed that test because I wasn't quite bowling the way I wanted to. And I remember actually bowling at lunch a couple of days of that game and thought, far out. I found what I was looking for and was bowling really well out in the middle and obviously on the side wicket. And so I obviously came in. I remember coming in. The second test was at Lords, and I remember, the boys had bowled okay. They obviously nearly won a game for us. The batters obviously let us down a little bit, but I wasn't sure if I was going to play. But then walking to, out of the pavilion across the ground at Lords to the training facilities, which are out the back, and Rod and Darren were walking. Rod Marsh and Darren Buffer were walking towards me, and they sort of stopped me at the wicket. I stopped at the wicket, had a look, and they stopped me there and said, "How you feeling?" I said, "Yeah, I'm awesome. Feel great. Looking forward to this game, and hopefully the boys can, hopefully we can come back and do a better job." And they said, "Well, you're going to be don't react." They actually said, "Don't react," because there were cameras obviously everywhere.
Yeah.
But, don't react, but you're playing. I was like, it took a little bit of a moment to take it in because to play an Ashes series is one thing, to play a Test match at Lords was another, and so I sort of smiled and they said, "Buff, don't react, you idiot, because there's cameras on us. And just go and do your thing in the nets and we'll talk about it later." So I sort of walked off and just put my head down and walked off and tried to hide the delight of that conversation. But
and then it gets it got better.
I mean, I managed to take 5, which is amazing. But again, losing. You talk about losing. It was. That whole series, jumping ahead a bit, I guess, that whole series, we actually walked away from that series and it's not something that you talk about a lot when you lose. We were actually quite happy with the way we played. We had England, in just about every Test match we should have won, just about. We had, we lost for the first Test, although it wasn't ideal, but we lost by, 3 runs, I think it was, or, Lords was a bit different. Although we had them on toast, they got away. I think we had them, 4 or 5 for not many, and then they got away. But we had moments in that series where we should have just won, and we didn't take them. I think at Durham we were 1 for 150, chasing 300 to win, and we got bowled out for 210. So we actually walked away knowing it was a back-to-back series. Although we'd lost, we weren't happy about that, but we knew we were close, and we knew that coming back into our backyard, we were going to make them pay, and we did. We sat down. I remember we had a really good training camp up in Brisbane. I remember Michael Clark pulling the bowlers aside. It was myself, Mitch Johnson, Pete Siddle. Who's the other one? I can't remember who the other one. Might have been Mitchell Stark or
Jimmy
Hazel.
Faulkner? Was Faulkner in there?
No, he was in England, but he wasn't back here in Australia. I can't remember who the fourth quick was, but Michael was sitting us down and just said, "Look, we're going to be ruthless. We're going to give it to them. I want you to be aggressive. I don't want you to go step over the line, obviously. I don't want you to be, physically abusing guys, but I want you to be ruthless. I want you to give them nothing. I want you to, get under their skin, but do it the right way and, execute what you can do." And because, obviously he was really good at doing that, Michael. He gave you really good confidence in your ability and the reason why you're in the team. And, we had a good chat about that. Every training session we had in that series, I'm just trying to think of that fourth quick was. It might have been James Patterson, actually.
Yeah.
But every time we trained in that, the bowling unit was just so tight anyway, but we just made sure that every session we trained we had a purpose and we had the plans to who we were trying to bowl to, and it just clicked. And obviously Mitch doing what he did was amazing as well. It was great to watch because, having Mitchell Johnson from one end and Pete Siddle and I, probably cleaning up because, England was scared of him and they've admitted that. And Pete Siddle and I, putting the ball in a good spot we were getting wickets because of him, and or the ones that he wasn't getting. Obviously, he took a few, but it was just a great series. And again, we're all over him, and so we did. We accomplished what we said before we left England, that we were going to, repay them, and obviously, repay ourselves, I guess, for the effort we did put in England. But we wanted to win that series 5-0, and we did.
And it sounds like things were building nicely. Like, it sounds like the group was gelling nicely and really well positioned for that series in Australia. Let's talk about the ball of the century. Everyone I talked to that I'd mentioned that you're next guest on the podcast, they're saying we need full descriptions of the ball that dismissed Alistair Cook. You knocked him over 8 times in test match cricket. Talk us through it.
Well, as people would be probably getting sick of, and I've said it every time I have talked about it, I had been trying to bowl that ball for at least 15 years of my cricketing career, to try and bowl one that swung in, hit the seam, and then swung around the bat. That is the perfect ball. And as I said, as a bowler, you try and bowl, and I was very, as a lot of bowlers are at that level, I was very hard on myself in bowling the perfect ball. To be able to do it, against such a good player. And as you said, one thing I did do, I played a lot of my test matches, my 27 test matches were against England, and to bowl to a guy such as Alistair Cook, who was a fantastic guy off the field as well, but to have the battles that we did was just amazing. And he even said to me after, he said, "You were too good there," and I said, "No, all I'm trying to do is hit the seam. The rest, once I let go of it, the seam's up, it sort of looks after itself." But yeah, I mean, again, once I think I saw that ball again yesterday, someone reposted it. In fact, it may have been early today, but it is a nice thing to look back on and see it, and people revisit it. I don't go looking for it, obviously. I'm not a big fan of doing that, but I do see it a lot, and I must admit, when it's up, I do watch it. I did watch it today. I hadn't seen it for a while, and
because it looked like it was not far away from hitting one of those cracks. It was almost right.
Yeah. I'll tell you a little story behind that. And again, I've said it a few times, but at that time in that series, I was quite sore. My knee was really sore, which is the problem knee I had. And I had a sort of an issue with starting a spell because it was second innings, and because I was quite stiff and sore. I was really, and I've been spoken to with by the bowling coach, like Craig McDermott, and even Michael had said to me, "Look, if you're struggling, I can give the new ball to the first over to someone else." And I said, "No, it's okay. I'm going to take it. I want it. I'm not going to knock the first ball of the test match and knock it back." And so I got out there a lot early, and I think the night before I'd actually had some fluid drain out of my knee, and
oh wow,
so I got out there early, as early as I could to get moving. And as I was running in, I got halfway in, and I was stiff and I was sore, and a voice in my head was saying, and there's no word of a lie, stop, because I didn't want to serve up a half volley, because obviously the first over of an innings, and that was the innings to win the Ashes. I didn't want to set the tone of bowling like a fruit sort of first ball that got hit before. So the voice said to me, stop, but I just kept going, and it just clicked. The timing of it, the crease, once I got through that little voice, wow. When I landed and bowled it, was just it just felt good, and obviously put it in the right spot. And as I say, I don't know what it did, if it hit the crack or if it whatever, but it just was in the right spot, I guess, and flicked the bail, and again the rest is history.
And you've still got the bail, I understand.
Yeah, I was just about to say I've got that somewhere. I'm sure I've put that. I've got a trophy cabinet upstairs in my house now that's tucked away in there somewhere. But I managed to get that, which is nice. But like I said, it's a nice every now and then. I've got a young fella and a young daughter. I think one day when I show them that, when they understand it, that hopefully they realise that it was a decent ball, and hopefully my young fella, if he wants to get into cricket, he can bowl a few like that himself.
Absolutely.
And my daughter at that point as well.
Yeah, for sure. And reflections on your career, it was a a challenging one injury-wise. You mentioned your knee there and your pectoral muscle in your first Shield game, a lot of stop-start. Any final reflections on the career on field?
Well, look, I'd love to be doing still what I was, playing Test cricket for Australia, or playing cricket for Australia, or playing cricket for Queensland even was fantastic. And even now, nearly 6 years on, it's gone. It is 6 years on, I think, nearly. Maybe in a few days, a few weeks. But I still wish I was playing. What I don't miss is the aches and pains and the pain I was in.
Yeah.
Towards the end of my career, I don't miss the pain. I'm still in pain now. I try and go for a run. I'm trying to make sure I'm still active, and I play a lot of golf, purely to stay active so I can still play reasonable golf. But I get that sore and stiff, and I don't miss that. And in the end, I was taking probably some Voltarens and some Panaline forts to play, which is not a good thing. And but I don't have a lot of regrets, I have to admit. But one is that I wish I had have stuck, dug in a bit earlier and realised that. As I said, when I wish Wayne Phillips didn't have to have that conversation with me to knuckle down and to realise my talent a bit too late, I guess, and wish I'd looked after myself a bit better. And who knows? I'm not saying that it would have happened earlier, because trying to break into a side that was pretty good early on. But I'd love to have played 150 first class games, for instance. And even. Maybe a year or two earlier, playing Test cricket and played 50, 60 tests. But playing cricket for Australia, I had the best job in the world. That was bowling the first ball of a Test match. And I managed to do it at the MCG in a Boxing Day Test. Try and beat that. It's bloody amazing feeling. And so I'd love to be able to still do that, but everything comes to an end, and it is what it is. And I played 27 more tests and I think it was 21 more one days than I thought I was ever going to play. So I sit here and I'm pretty happy and pretty lucky. Yeah,
and you mentioned your family. You've got a couple of children. What's life holding now? What are your plans going forward?
Yeah, it's been uncertain at the moment, to be honest. I worked, obviously I came out of cricket, I went into coaching, but I was lucky enough to take a role at CA in the pathway. But it's all come to an end, unfortunately, in June or early this month, and obviously a bit of change again, which is very unfortunate. Cricket Australia, they seem to get things right, then muck things up. It's a bit frustrating. There's a bit of history behind that, but look, I'm in the market I'm looking around again for another role. So it's a little bit uncertain, which is okay. And again, at this uncertain time in the world, it's been a phenomenal 3 or 4 months. I'm not the only one looking for a job. So look, going okay. I've been enough good. Spend some time with the family. Which before, I think, when we sort of started, March. I think before then I travelled that much and felt as though I didn't really know my kids, and so it's been really good to have a massive chunk of time at home. And I love taking my boy Carter to school. I love picking him up. I love taking my little girl to daycare one day a week, and doing I do like spending time with my wife as well on top of that. But it's nice to be able to get time with the family. So. And I've snuck in a few games of golf here and there, which has been good too. But nice. There's a new adventure coming, hopefully, and not sure what that is at the moment. But look, I'm excited about that as well. So onwards and upwards. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, before we go, I've got to ask you our hardest hitting question on this podcast, one that our listeners love. If you could have a net with 3 people, they could be past, present, cricket people, non-cricket people, who are you inviting down to the nets?
Do you know what? I had 3 unbelievable names in my head last night, and I've forgotten them. one of them was Warnie. I was lucky enough to spend some time with Warnie in South Africa when we were over there one year, and he's just a freak when it comes to talking cricket.
Yeah. So he's a genuine cricket nuffy, Warnie?
Yep. Unbelievable cricket brain.
Yeah.
Unbelievable cricket brain. Just talking to him about cricket. And I didn't spend a lot of time. I'm not proclaiming to know him very well, but
Yep.
you know, he was just to sit and listen to him talk cricket and was just amazing. He generally is a cricket nuffy and fence. He's very unlucky not to have captained the country when he played. So he has to be one. I have to say, Ricky Ponting. I used to love watching Ricky bat. I used to love bowling to him. I used to love watching him train. He was just a freak of a training paddock. He trained a million miles an hour. Guys that just, when they got in the team, or even guys that would come and train with the guys, the Australian squad bowlers or state guys that just sit and watch and go far out. No wonder this guy's so good. He was just a freak at everything he did. So the other one I had last night, I can't remember. You said non-cricket too, didn't you?
Yeah, you can have whoever you want.
Massive got. Yeah, so go on.
We've had Johnny Howard, we've had Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. There's been Johan Botha had a long distance runner there last week, so the options are endless.
Yeah, so I guess being a massive golf fan, I guess the obvious choice would be Tiger Woods, but I'd love to have Adam Scott. I think Adam Scott would be a fantastic. I know he's a massive cricket fanatic as well. A guy used to play for Queensland, Aaron Nye, did actually grow up with Adam Scott, and he used to come into training a little bit before I got there. But obviously, I'd love to have just a little bit of his golf swing would be fantastic. The way he hits the ball and swings. But so Scotty would probably would be one. But so probably those three. I think that was my three. I've got a really bad memory, but yeah.
Oh, it's a pretty good mix. Punter, Warney, and Adam Scott, and those boys enjoy their golf as well, don't they? Punter's a bit of a golfer, so I'm not sure about Warney. Warney's big in golf. Warney's massive in his golf. Okay.
He's got his handicap below 10, I believe. He's in single figures. He plays a lot of the. He's very lucky to play a lot of the Alfred Dunhill over in Europe or in England and Scotland, and he loves his golf. But I'd love to have a hit of golf with him as well. That'd be fantastic. It would be good foursome or threesome anyway. I'd just make up the numbers. But,
you carry the bags.
Exactly right.
Oh, well, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, Ryan. I really appreciate you giving time to our listeners to tell some of your story and give us some insights into what it's like being on the journey of a professional athlete, and really wish you all the best with the future plans. I'm sure something right up your alley will come along, and I'm sure you'll excel at whatever it is that's the next chapter in the life of Ryan Harris.
Thanks, Matty. I'm looking forward to that chapter, but it's been great. And, thanks for having me on.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks, mate.
Cheers.
A massive thanks to Ryan Harris for joining us on this latest edition of the Cricket Library podcast, and a massive thanks to you, our listeners, as well. Without you, the show would not be possible at all, and I'm really glad that you all tune in as much as you do. I'm very thankful for that indeed, as I'm sure Ryan was very thankful for the conversation that he had with Wayne Phillips, where he really challenged him to start getting the best out of himself and find something to take himself to the next level. And those tough conversations can make or break people, and I'm so glad that we're here today to hear that story from Ryan and the career that he had, going on to play for Australia and win an Ashes series for Australia as well. Tremendous achievements, but also great to hear just how much it meant to him winning that Sheffield Shield title for Queensland, and the special place that has in his cricketing journey as well. The influence of his family, the support that he had from them, also the influence of Darren Lehmann are really pivotal there as well, and love that he got to sneak in not sneak in, he was invited in to celebrate with the Australian team at the 1999 World Cup there when he was there as a fan. That memorable tie in the semi-final, and then the World Cup win against Pakistan. And then the fact that he was able to do something similar for his dad when he made his Test debut, getting his dad to come to the Australian cricket team dinner. A magnificent little thrill being able to do something like that. A wonderful story, and one that I thoroughly enjoyed, and I trust you did as well. And if you enjoyed that, there's plenty more in the back catalogue that you will enjoy as well. Michael Klinger, Tim Ludeman, Nathan Horitz, Daryl Tuffy. He actually played in that first test of Ryan Harris's there. I think Ryan might have had a chance to get a fifer bowling to Daryl Tuffy there. We didn't ask him about that, but that's okay. And we've got plenty of great episodes coming up as well. We've got some female cricketers in the next couple of weeks, and we've got one of the most prolific run scorers in domestic cricket coming up in the coming weeks as well. So make sure you hit the subscribe button and tune in for the next instalment of the Cricket Library podcast. This has been Matt Ellis. Thanks so much for joining us. Bye for now.